a lot of people think of rubrics as like just a data collection tool. They are more of a, you can design rubrics as data collection tools. You know, where you might be asking, say, a family, where would you put yourself on this scale that's quite richly described, not just a 5-pointer from great to whatever, but it's richer than that. More importantly, they are evidence interpretation guides. So a lot of evidence feeds into them, and you are using this as your guide for interpreting it in a systematic and transparent way across all the evidence that you've got. But one of the reasons that I got into creating them was because I found that my social science training was good at helping me create a research question, break it down into sub-questions, figure out what evidence I needed in order to answer that question. So it was very good at going analytic, breaking things down into smaller and smaller pieces. But where my training was lacking was in telling me, how do you then pack together all those different pieces to get to an answer at the big picture level for that question you asked in the first place? So I find a lot of evaluation reports that I read, and I quite often get asked to review and comment on methodology and figure out ways to strengthen it. And people think I'm going to suggest methods, but the bit that always jumps out at me is sometimes you've asked good questions at the front end, but most of the time you aren't actually answering them. You're sort of free associating to them with data, and the answer's supposed to be evident at the end of it somehow, but it isn't. It's like a Rorschach ink blot, so anybody can read into it whatever they want, and in a lot of cases you just end up so lost in all the details. I think part of the job of doing good evaluation is to be able to take the entire mix of evidence and pack it back systematically together to say, here's the answer to the question that we asked in the first place, to the best we can figure it out. And it may have higher levels of certainty or it may have lower levels of certainty, but we want to get at least an approximate answer to the important question, instead of just saying, well, we asked this broad question and therefore we measured a whole bunch of indicators, and then we sort of left them scattered with a few graphs and stories and whatever, but we never bothered standing back. And this is one of the important things about evaluation. It's not just about saying how good or valuable results were, but one of the really important things is saying how important results are. So when you're looking at an outcome and you've got a wide range of evidence, you need to be looking at that and saying, what's really important in there? So we've got some strengths and we've got some weaknesses, okay? Everybody lays those out. But how significant are the weaknesses, and are they a deal breaker? Is that killing the program? Like, is that like a disaster? Or is that quite minor in the scheme of things? Because you can describe the strengths and weaknesses, but unless you say what's most crucial in all that, you don't give decision makers a good lead on what they should be paying attention to. You know, they need to be able to prioritize, like, right, what's crucial here? What should we go after? Rather than just saying, here are the strengths and here are the weaknesses, therefore you should address the weaknesses. Some of your worst weaknesses, you know, or some of the things that are performing most weakly may not be the most crucial things. So it may not be such a big deal. That's part of our job. And we need to do that to help decision makers, but also to synthesize a mix of evidence to pack it back into an answer to the high level question. You don't always have to be able to say, you know, how good, brilliant and cost effective is in the entire program. I mean, that's usually a helpful thing to try and have a shot at, but at the very least you need to be able to say, you know, if you're saying like, how strong is this set of outcomes, you need to be able to say, well, here's the mix of evidence we got, but overall when you stand back and look at the big picture and you understand what's important and what's not, here's the overall sense of how we're doing on that outcome.